Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Good morning. I hope you're enjoying your cup of joe with a Juxtaposition 1 mug, coffee mug. Today's video will be entitled Optical Telegraphy and Claude Chappe. He's French, right? He created officially created the first optical telegraphy. Let's first discuss the definition of telegraphy because that helps explain the situation that we find ourselves in today through no fault of our own. We were born into this military Hunger Games strategic Hamlet Swiss bank chess game. Essentially, it's a game of poker, it's a game of chicken, it's a game of courage versus stupidity, it's cluelessness versus tenets of thinking, critical thinking. It's cognitive warfare. That's the situation we find ourselves in. Most people do not have the ammunition to fight this game because their tenets of thinking are disabled and they have no critical thinking skills. So they are doomed to live into a Donald Trump Freedom City or Kamala Harris Liberty City, also known throughout America as FEMA camps, Federal Emergency Management Agency prison camps. That is the direction, that is the trajectory of the Swiss bank anthropology known as United Nations 2030. It's Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 2030, you will own nothing and be miserable. That's the plan. All right, so let's discuss the concept of telegraphy, which has to do with messaging. Telegraphy is the long distance transmission of messaging where the sender uses symbolic codes which are only known by the recipient, right? Encoded messages like Morse code, right? All right, so it's the long distance transmission. We're going to have a definition of what makes long. I think further than you can shout or yell or holler, right? Long distance, I think, typically means 3 miles to 10-mile distances is considered long. That's the realm of long. Um, all right, so it's the idea of sending transmission secret coded messages using symbolic ciphers, which are known to your cohort recipient. This is different than using physical exchange of an object bearing the message, like the Pony Express or the Post Messenger on horseback. In other words, that's traditionally how military encampments communicated by different deployments in the battlefield domain, the domain of the battlefield. You position your troops in different strategic locations along the perimeter of the enemy, and then you dispatch a running messenger, like a Roman runner, or a horseback runner who delivers a handwritten message to the commander of the other outpost, right? And telegraphy seeks to use technology and physical sciences to replace the horseback delivery messenger. Messenger? All right. Thus, the flag semaphore, which is the design attributed to Claude Chappe, this method of telegraphy, whereas the passenger pigeon or the ancient signaling systems of the runner or horseback messenger would essentially supplant them as a communication military system in and around peacetime and in battle during times of battle. The earliest forms of telegraphy were put into widespread use um, and was known as the Chappe telegraph or optical telegraph system that was attributed to Claude Chappe, who came from a sophisticated academic family, well educated in France. During the French Revolution, this device was rolled out in 1795 and used by all sides in the revolution of the so-called Revolution of France, where petty privileges were bartered during the 10 years and the 18 months of terror, the time of terror. Anyway, this telegraphy system was used extensively in France, was later used by Napoleon in the Napoleon campaigns. And you should know the British immediately stole the idea immediately when it was deployed in 1795 and began to use light emitting energy, kind of an early precursor to LED lights, right? To capture sun or moonlight and use a shutter and mirror system using reflective materials or mirrors to redirect the light in the way that Sir Isaac Newton used prisms to redirect light energy. But in the case of the 1796, the British were concerned with messaging, using the optical optogenetics to communicate encoded messaging. All right. The heliograph was a telegraph system that used reflective sunlight for signaling. Now, in the first initial design by Claude Chappe, um, is 100% dependent on sunlight and clear days. So if it's foggy or it's a dark, cloudy day or it's nighttime, the system doesn't work because it is dependent on having a cohort located about 3 to 10 miles distance from you on high ground. Typically, it's going to be on a hillside. Um, and you use a telescope to view your cohorts to see when they send you a message. Um, Claude used a wooden arm system to transfer the encoded messages, which would be using a line of sight on a clear, unobscured day where you can illuminate the encoded message. You can see that a weakness would be that the enemy would just make maneuvers at nighttime. And the system would be completely disabled. It wouldn't work, right? So that's why the British wanted to see if they could use moonlight and other techniques. So it'd be a 24/7 system. And eventually, both of those systems, one is called the shutter system, which is really a British design modification, or the um, the semaphore system, which was the Claude Chappe system. Essentially, there are two main types: the semaphore telegraphy, which is Claude Chappe's, and the shutter telegraph system, which is the pirated technology modified by the Brits. Um, the Claude telegraph was invented technically in 1792, but it was not really deployed until 1795 in France. And then it was extensively used because they set up nodes on the network. They set up optical telegraph like Coit towers, something that eventually would look sort of like a Coit tower, a cylindrical tower with the wooden arms like a windmill atop the tower, like antennas, but they weren't traditional antennas. They were just wooden um, masts and booms. A mast and boom system was the Claude Chappe invention. Anyway, it was further modified, by the Brits and used extensively throughout Europe. And eventually, both systems were supplanted by what is called electrical telegraphy, where you use an energy source system. See, the beauty of the Claude Chop or the British shutter system was it's passive. In other words, it relies on sunlight and moonlight to drive the communication. It doesn't require an electrical source or a database or um, a Hoover Dam or wind power or solar power. It doesn't require anything of a backup system. It's a passive system that works just with Mother Nature. But of course, the military always wants to push the envelope and they want systems to work 24/7. And, look at what we have today in your neighborhood. We have LED streetlights, we have LED headlights in cars and motorcycles. We have smart meters. We have ring cameras. We have curbs and crosswalks using City Works paint, which includes the nanobots. And we have drones and helicopters and turboprop planes flying relentlessly over my town. So we have no limit of nodes on the network. Not only that, most disturbing of all, we have human beings who went out and got the COVID vaccine, turning themselves into a bio-cyber interface, um, so that the human beings, the vast majority of human beings in my city, are effectively turn themselves into antennas. They're walking hard drives. They're like laptop computers walking around. With or without their cell phone, it does not matter. They don't have to carry a cell phone or a Fitbit or smart glasses to engage in the practice of telegraphy. Human beings are now nodes on the network, and they're not 3 miles to 10 miles distance. They're literally within 100 feet of each other or less. Even if they're social distancing, they have cut the distance down incredibly. And of course, our system today runs on 60 terahertz, which are sub-millimeter size waves. 1/100th of a millimeter, 1/1000th of a centimeter is the size of the pulsing. And the pulsing is of sound. In other words, now today messages can be delivered by ultrasonics. Today messages can be delivered by light energy, LED light emitting diode energy, photonics, aka optogenetics, and of course, you can pulse a message using electrical magnetic resonance, or EMF, electromechanical frequencies. So that's three different techniques to send and receive encoded, encrypted messages today. We're using all three systems: sound, light, and magnetic resonance. How do you like them apples? That's quite an upgrade from the Claude Chappe telegraphy system known as optical communications. Optical communications is also known as optical telecommunications. It's communication using light to carry information, also known as line of sight. It has also been uh, upgraded to use electrical device energies, right? Which we've just discussed. All right. And other devices that were rolled out to consumers were that of the record player and the phonograph machine. These are all in the realm of military research weaponry. The idea of listening to music, the idea of eventually radio communication, then television signaling. And today we have internet and mobile phone communications, 100% military system. And today's video was really born out of studying Telegraph Hill in San Francisco, also known as Loma Alta, Loma Alta High Hill, also known as Goat Hill, also known as Telegraph Hill, and Coit Tower, which came along. Coit Tower came along in 1933. The invention of Claude Chappe was installed on Telegraph Hill in September 1849. That was during the immigration of the clowns that came to California searching for gold in the Gold Rush, a Swiss staged event, the Gold Rush. They discovered gold allegedly in January 1848, and then essentially 18 months later, this French optical communication device known as the Claude Chappe um, telegraph was installed in San Francisco atop one of the 7 strategic military hills in San Francisco. You have Telegraph Hill, Recon Hill, Nob Hill, Russian Hill, Twin Peaks, which is 2 peaks, but we're only going to count it as one. And then you have Mount Davidson, right? And we also have Grand View Hilltop Peak, that's 7. But there's actually an eighth, but it depends on your definition of strategic hillside is. But let me continue on here, is that those are nodes on the network. You always want to claim the high ground, whether you're playing chess, whether you're racing bicycles, whether you're engaged in the invasion of a hamlet, someone else's strategic hamlet. You want to have dominance of the battlefield domain. This is the art of playing poker. This is the art of playing chess. This is the art of bicycle racing. You want to have a team. In the case of Vietnam, it was a clown show because the NATO forces always had superiority in the air, on the ground, and in the battlefield domain. There was never any question. Isn't it interesting that NATO forces had total dominance over the communists, the alleged native people, who were named by the media as insurgency communist Viet Cong, or uniformed North NVA, North Vietnamese regulars army, North Vietnamese Army, NVA. Always have to have an acronym when the military or NATO is involved. They can never just tell you what they mean. They have to hide behind an encrypted cipher code, right? And the only people who could invade Hanoi during the 10 years of Vietnam War in America, the American Vietnam experience, uh, the only people who could invade were the SR-71 spy plane to throw what was called the Sound of Freedom, a sonic boom over the downtown of Hanoi, um, and Jane Fonda, a Hollywood actress, who did a photo op on a surface-to-air gunnery um, installation. Isn't that interesting? The Marines couldn't invade Hanoi. The United States Army couldn't invade. Charlie Company couldn't invade. The Air Force couldn't invade. But Jane Fonda, who was about 27 years old, she could invade Vietnam, where the Central Bank Authority is located in Hanoi. And nobody dropped a bomb on Swiss Central Bank of Hanoi, where they have an obelisk. They have an obelisk in Hanoi. They have multiple obelisks in Hanoi, and nobody blew any of them up because the obelisk is the representation of the fascism of the world. And in the end, Vietnam is a fascist state, just like Switzerland is, just like Washington, D.C. is, just like Manhattan, New York is, just like Wall Street is, just like Sand Hill Road and the Sacred Heart Convent are. They are fascist organizations like the Hoover Institute, like Victor Davis Hanson is a fascist, like Condoleezza Rice is a fascist, like Milton Friedman was a fascist before he died. He was a fascist, like George Shultz and Caspar Weinberger, fascist, like Seymour Hersh, fascist, like Jennifer Doudna, Jamie Cate, and Rachel Horowitz, fascist. That's who runs our weapons facilities for NATO forces. All right, so you get the picture is light, illumination. But today, with infrared technology and sound and magnetic resonance, we can operate 24/7. We no longer need um, a clear and sunny day. Fog matters not. I don't care. Bring on the London fog. It won't affect today's communications. And you learn from my channel that if you can send messages, send and receive, okay? Just like we have human beings walking around here sending and receiving, bouncing, signaling off each other, that also you can deploy a weapon along with the message. The message could be bird flu. The message could be Havana syndrome. The message could be headaches, spatial awareness issues, ADD, attention deficit disorder. They could be manic episode, die of a heart attack, like Lindsey Graham just did. You could die like Betsy Arakawa or Gene Hackman or 33-year-old Erin Valente. You could die like her, manic episode. That's a message that can be delivered through optical communications or ultrasonic or magnetic resonance, EMF. It's called a direct energy attack. It's an invisible weapon for a quiet war. It's a silent killer, right? That's what COVID is, right? COVID is direct energy weaponry, also known as Havana syndrome. That's what it really is. I understand the media calls it a deadly pandemic virus. But the media always lies. They never tell the truth. Can you imagine if the media or racial mad cow came on and said that we're all in danger of optical communications weapons, photonic and ultrasonic weapons, and that optogenetics and Bluetooth could kill you, or that your smart meter could flush your toilet and put you down like a sick dog. Can you imagine if she said that? It's true. They can. A smart meter can kill you. An LED streetlight can kill you if it has a command issued by a higher authority, perhaps from your fusion center on the edge of your city or town, um, a node on the network that says lights out for you. That's the system that we have today deployed. But isn't it interesting that it was invented in 1792 and it was deployed during the French Revolution? And it's also disturbing to learn that Claude Chappe died at age 41, allegedly of suicide. And he was an extremely successful man. They said he was depressed because many people were stealing his patent and modifying his communication telegraphy ideas. I believe that, like I'm going to buy the Golden Gate Bridge for $10,000. I don't believe that Claude or Claude Chappe committed suicide. I believe he was murdered and shunted aside, and the military took full command of telegraphy from, when his date of death, which I'm telling you, he died on January 23rd, 1805. It was lights out for Claude Shop, lights out, January 1805. Then we had the Swiss New Helvetia discovery of gold in California in 1848, and we installed Claude Shop's invention on Telegraph Hill um, in 1849, in September 1849. All right. Then Coit Tower was erected, 50 years later, in 1933. We built Coit Tower, which looks a lot like an obelisk or a fire hose nozzle in respect of the volunteer firefighters of San Francisco, made famous after the 1906 earthquake. Anyway, wanted to pay respects to Claude Chappe, a French inventor who demonstrated the practical use of the semaphore system that eventually spanned all of France using these nodes on the network located between 5 and 15 kilometers from each other on hilltops. The operator of the closest tower reads the messages sent via telescope. Then it passes along to the next node on the network, and so on and so forth to create this communication loop, a loop. And this telecommunication system was first of its kind in the what's called the industrial age, and it was used up to 1850s when electrical telegraph systems replaced it. So it's interesting that San Francisco did adopt the old technology just before electronic telegraphy became universally accepted. And San Francisco has adopted all of the new technology when it becomes available, because that's just how they roll in California, which is a Swiss military weapons research foundry. That's what we do in California. Oh, and by the way, we grow tomatoes, artichokes, alfalfa, rice, apricots, peaches, and oranges. Yes, we have lunch of oranges also. But I want you to know that we make more weapons than we grow fruit and produce and lettuce, Salinas lettuce. We grow a lot of that too. Um, we used to catch Dungeness crab and salmon, but not so much anymore with the algae bloom that is plaguing California fishing. All right, that's my video for today. I'll post extensive footnotes discussing this concept of telegraphy, send and receiving. And of course, today we don't have Coit Tower obelisks standing on hillsides, because today we operate under 60 terahertz using 7G equipment. 7G equipment are things such as your mobile phone, your laptop computer, your um, your tablet, your iPod, your smart glasses, your heart rate monitor, your insulin pump, your neighbor who's got the bird flu vaccine and the Omicron booster, ring cameras, smart meters, LED streetlights, no parking red paint, crosswalks, which have the nanobits. If you repainted your home recently, you have nanobots in the paint on your walls. So essentially, now we have full spectrum dominance. That is total domination of the battlefield domain. And NATO has achieved its goal, which is CubeSats in the air superiority. They have superiority over the ocean, the duck blinds, Skaggs Island, which is a weapons facility, United States Navy and U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I'm here to tell you they dominate our city centers, and we have 5G towers operating on 6G terahertz. We've got mini towers, maxi towers. We got ponderosa pines made out of aluminum needles. We have we have all this smart dust messages, MIMS and MIMOs breathing and appearing on our skin to become biosensors. We have fully augmented human beings who are tethered to the cloud 24/7. And we have novel vaccines, which are bio-cyber interface send and receive transponders. And our cars are spying on us, and our phones are spying on us, and our wireless router in our home is spying on us, and our television and refrigerator and our smart meter is measuring the flushing of the toilet. So essentially, it's full spectrum dominance now extended out to civilian targets because the civilians are, in fact, they're dairy animals. They're dairy cows on a production of milk farming and or they're meat cows. And you know, a dairy cow gets turned into a meat cow after 7 years. You get 7 years of producing milk, then you get turned into hamburger from McDonald's or In-N-Out Burger. And that's true with lambs and sheep and pigs. You know, how does bacon get it into your refrigerator? Well, first it has to be slaughtered at a hog farm slaughtering processing plant. They typically don't do the slaughtering at the farm. They put the pigs into a trailer, drive them to the slaughterhouse, and then put a die bolt in their brain. And it's lights out. And we have prosciutto and bacon and pork bellies. All right. That's the same policy that human beings have. If you have a real ID, then you're a pig on a pig farm. You're a cow on a ranch. This is the concept of putting lipstick on a pig and telling a prospective buyer that it's an Arabian racehorse capable of winning the Kentucky Derby. That's what COVID was. COVID was putting lipstick on a pig. What's disturbing to me, juxtaposition, and my channel is how many pigs believe that lipstick will turn you into an Arabian racehorse, which leads me to the conclusion that the overwhelming majority of people in America are dumber than a box of hammers, which means they have their tenets of thinking are fully disabled, they have no cognition, and they just look at their phone, staring at their phone, awaiting the next command to go to the processing center, first going to the Donald Trump Freedom Center or California Forever, and then ending up as bacon in the store, and the other parts of the body in a cremation oven escaping through the chimney from California Forever FEMA camp. Do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Take care. Bye-bye.